The rain fell like tears from heaven that night. Each drop seemed to carry the weight of broken dreams and shattered hopes. In the grand kingdom of Valdoria, where golden towers touched the clouds and silk banners danced in the wind, a girl named Serafina pressed herself against the cold stone wall of an alley. Her once beautiful dress hung in tatters. Mud stained the fabric that had once been pure white. Her long golden hair, which used to shine like spun sunlight, now hung limp and dirty around her pale face. "Please," she whispered to the empty night, "don't let them see me like this." Just 6 months ago, Serafina had been the most envied girl in all of Valdoria. She was the daughter of Duke Aldric, one of the richest men in the kingdom. Every day, she wore gowns made of the finest silk. Jewels sparkled around her neck like captured stars. Servants waited on her every need, but that was before the fire. The fire that took everything. The fire that the people said she started. Now she had nothing. No family, no home, no hope. The sound of horse hooves on wet cobblestones made her heart race with fear. She pressed deeper into the shadows, hoping the darkness would hide her shame. But fate had other plans. Prince Adrian pulled his black horse to a stop just outside the alley. He was returning from a long journey to the neighboring kingdom. His mission had been simple: find a bride. His father, the king, had given him an ultimatum: marry within a year or lose his right to the throne. Adrian had met many princesses on his journey. They were all beautiful, they were all proper, they were all perfect, and they were all completely boring. Something glinted in the alley, catching his eye. A piece of broken glass reflected the moonlight. But as he looked closer, he saw it wasn't glass at all. It was a tear on someone's face. "Who's there?" he called out, his deep voice echoing off the stone walls. Serafina's blood turned to ice. She recognized that voice. Everyone in the kingdom knew Prince Adrian's voice. Strong, commanding, royal. "Please," she begged, pressing herself harder against the wall, "don't let them see me like this." But Adrian had already dismounted his horse. His tall frame filled the mouth of the alley as he stepped into the shadows. His dark hair was wet from the rain, and his blue eyes searched the darkness until they found her. When their eyes met, something magical happened. Time stopped. The rain seemed to pause in midair. The world held its breath. Adrian had expected to find a beggar or a thief hiding in the alley. What he found instead was the most beautiful girl he had ever seen. Even covered in mud and rain, even dressed in rags, she glowed with an inner light that took his breath away. "My lady," he said softly, taking a step closer. "Are you hurt?" Serafina wanted to run. She wanted to disappear into the night and never be seen again. But something in the prince's voice stopped her. There was no judgment. No disgust, only genuine concern. "I'm nothing," she whispered. "I'm nobody. Please, just leave me alone." "Nobody?" Adrian smiled, and even in the darkness, his smile seemed to light up the entire alley. "I don't think that's possible. You have the most beautiful eyes I've ever seen." Serafina's heart began to race, but not from fear this time. No one had called her beautiful in months, not since the fire, not since she lost everything. "You don't understand," she said, shaking her head. "I'm Serafina Aldric, or I was. My father, he's dead. My family is gone. Everyone thinks I'm a killer." The name hit Adrian like a lightning bolt. He had heard the story, of course. Everyone in the kingdom had. Duke Aldric's daughter had supposedly started a fire that burned down their entire estate. The Duke and Duchess had died in the flames. The daughter had disappeared. Most people believed she had run away out of guilt. But looking at this broken, beautiful girl in front of him, Adrian knew the truth was much more complicated. Tell me what really happened, he said, extending his hand to her. Serafina stared at his hand for a long moment. It was clean and strong, with long fingers that had never known hard work. Everything about him screamed nobility and power. Everything about her screamed poverty and shame. "I can't," she whispered. "I can't let you get involved. It's too dangerous." "Dangerous?" Adrian raised an eyebrow. "I'm a prince. I think I can handle a little danger." Despite everything, Serafina almost smiled. Almost. "You don't know my stepmother." The word stepmother sent chills down Adrian's spine. In his experience, stepmothers in fairy tales were never good news. "What about your stepmother?" Serafina closed her eyes, and when she opened them again, they were filled with such pain that Adrian wanted to pull her into his arms and never let anyone hurt her again. "Lady Vivienne married my father 3 years ago," Serafina began, her voice barely above a whisper. At first she seemed kind, but after the wedding, everything changed. She wanted me gone. She wanted to be the only woman in my father's life. The rain began to fall harder, and Adrian noticed that Serafina was shivering. Without thinking, he took off his black cloak and wrapped it around her shoulders. The fabric was warm and smelled like cedar and rain and something entirely masculine. "Thank you," she breathed, pulling the cloak tighter around herself. "Continue," Adrian said gently. "What happened the night of the fire?" Serafina took a shaky breath. Lady Vivienne had been planning something for weeks. I could feel it. She would watch me with these cold, calculating eyes. She would whisper to her personal guard, Sir Marcus, when she thought I wasn't looking. "What kind of planning?" I think she wanted to kill me." The words came out in a rush, as if saying them quickly would make them hurt less. "The night of the fire, she gave me tea before bed. Special tea," she said, "to help me sleep better." Adrian's jaw clenched. He was beginning to understand where this story was going, and he didn't like it one bit. "I drank the tea because I trusted her." But something was wrong. The tea tasted bitter, and soon I felt dizzy and sick. I tried to go to my father, but I couldn't move. My body felt like it was made of lead. "She drugged you," Adrian said, his voice hard with anger. "Yes, but the drug wasn't strong enough, or maybe I was stronger than she thought. I heard footsteps in the hallway, then I smelled smoke." Serafina's voice broke on the last word, and tears began to stream down her face. "She set the fire while you were drugged," Adrian said. "It wasn't a question." "I tried to save them," Serafina sobbed. "I tried so hard, but the fire was everywhere, and the smoke was so thick, and I couldn't breathe. I found my father in his study. He was already gone. And my mother, my real mother's portrait, was burning on the wall." Adrian couldn't stand it anymore. He reached out and pulled Serafina into his arms, holding her while she cried. She was so small and fragile against his chest. How had she survived such horror? "How did you escape?" he asked softly. "Sir Marcus found me," she said into his chest. "But he didn't save me out of kindness. Lady Vivienne had ordered him to make sure I died in the fire. He tried to knock me unconscious, but I fought back. I managed to get away, but not before." She pulled away from Adrian and pushed up the sleeve of her tattered dress. On her left arm was a long, ugly scar that ran from her wrist to her elbow. "He cut me with his sword as I was escaping through the window. I almost bled to death that night." Adrian traced the scar gently with his finger, and Serafina shivered at his touch, but it wasn't from cold this time. "You're so brave," he whispered, "so incredibly brave." "Brave?" Serafina laughed bitterly. "I've been hiding in alleys and stealing food for 6 months. I'm a coward." No, Adrian said firmly, cupping her face in his hands. You're a survivor, and you're the strongest person I've ever met. Their faces were inches apart now. Serafina could feel his warm breath on her cheek. She could see the flecks of gold in his blue eyes. She could feel her heart beating so hard she was sure he could hear it. I should go, she whispered. If anyone sees us together, it will ruin you. Let them see, Adrian said. I don't care. You will care when your father finds out you've been talking to a suspected murderer. Then we won't tell him. Adrian's voice was low and husky. We'll keep it our secret. Secrets are dangerous, Your Highness. Adrian, he corrected. My name is Adrian. And yes, secrets are dangerous, but sometimes they're also necessary. A new voice cut through the night like a knife. How touching! Both Adrian and Serafina spun around to see a figure emerging from the shadows at the other end of the alley. Sir Marcus stepped into the moonlight, his hand resting on the hilt of his sword. Serafina's blood turned to ice. The man who had tried to kill her 6 months ago was standing not 10 feet away. Sir Marcus, Adrian said coolly, what brings you out on such a wet night? Marcus smiled, but it was a cold, cruel expression. I've been looking for something that belongs to my lady. Something that should have burned 6 months ago. I don't know what you're talking about, Adrian lied smoothly. Oh, I think you do, Your Highness. Marcus took a step closer. You see, Lady Vivienne has been very patient. She let the little mouse run free for a while, thinking she would die on her own. But mice are surprisingly resilient creatures. Serafina pressed closer to Adrian, and he instinctively moved to shield her with his body. What does Lady Vivienne want? Adrian asked. What she's always wanted. For the last witness to her crimes to disappear forever. Witness? Adrian's mind raced. What witness? Marcus laughed. Didn't the little mouse tell you? She saw everything that night. She saw Lady Vivienne set the fire. She saw her murder the Duke and Duchess. She's the only person who can prove what really happened. Adrian turned to look at Serafina, and she nodded miserably. I saw her do it, Serafina whispered. The drug wasn't strong enough. I was conscious when she came into my father's study. I watched her pour oil around the room. I watched her light the match, and I watched her lock the door so he couldn't escape. So you see, Your Highness, Marcus continued, this isn't just about a runaway girl. This is about justice. And justice demands that all witnesses be silenced. Adrian's hand moved to his own sword. I won't let you hurt her. You won't let me? Marcus laughed again. You're just one man, Prince, and I have friends. As if summoned by his words, 2 more guards stepped out of the shadows. They wore no royal insignia, which meant they were Lady Vivienne's personal men, mercenaries, who would do anything for gold. Adrian quickly calculated the odds. 3 against 1. Not impossible, but not good either, especially with Serafina to protect. Run, he whispered to her. When I give the signal, run as fast as you can. I won't leave you, she whispered back. You have to. You're the only one who can prove Lady Vivienne's guilt. If you die tonight, she wins. Marcus was growing impatient. Enough talking. Kill them both. The 3 guards drew their swords and advanced. Adrian pushed Serafina behind him and drew his own blade. The steel sang as it cleared the scabbard, and moonlight danced along its edge. Now, he shouted, and lunged at Marcus. But Serafina didn't run. Instead, she grabbed a broken piece of wood from the ground and swung it at one of the other guards. It cracked against his skull, and he stumbled backward with a curse. I told you to run. Adrian yelled as he parried Marcus's first attack. And I told you I wouldn't leave you, Serafina shot back. ducking as the second guard swung his sword at her head. The alley erupted into chaos. Steel clashed against steel. Boots splashed through puddles. Curses and battle cries echoed off the stone walls. Adrian was a skilled fighter, but Marcus was experienced and ruthless. They danced back and forth across the narrow alley, their swords sparking with each impact. Meanwhile, Serafina found herself facing two guards with nothing but a piece of broken wood. She was fast and desperate, but they were trained killers. One of them managed to grab her wrist, and she cried out in pain. The sound of her cry sent Adrian into a rage. He fought with renewed fury, driving Marcus back step by step. "You picked the wrong girl to fall in love with, Prince," Marcus sneered as their blades locked together. "No," Adrian replied, shoving him backward. "You picked the wrong girl to threaten." With a powerful thrust, Adrian's sword found its mark. Marcus looked down in shock at the blade piercing his chest, then crumpled to the ground. But the other two guards still had Serafina cornered. One of them raised his sword to strike the killing blow. "Serafina!" Adrian shouted, but he was too far away to help. Time seemed to slow down. The sword began its deadly arc towards Serafina's head. She closed her eyes and waited for the end. But the end never came. Instead, she heard the sound of more hooves on cobblestones. Then she heard voices shouting. Royal voices. "Halt!" In the name of the king. The king's guard had arrived. The two guards released Serafina and tried to run, but they were quickly surrounded. Within minutes, they were captured and bound. Captain William of the King's Guard approached Adrian with concern. "Your Highness, are you hurt?" "I'm fine," Adrian said, sheathing his sword. "But this woman needs protection. She has information about the fire that killed Duke Aldrich and his family." Captain William looked at Serafina with surprise. "This is the Duke's daughter? The one everyone thought was dead?" "Very much alive," Adrian said firmly. "And under my protection." "Your Highness," the captain said carefully, "perhaps we should discuss this at the castle. The king will want to hear what she has to say." Adrian nodded. "You're right. But first, she needs food and proper clothing. She's been living on the streets for 6 months." "Of course, Your Highness." Adrian turned to Serafina, who was staring at everything with wide, disbelieving eyes. "You're safe now," he said softly. "I promise." "Why?" she whispered. "Why did you help me? You could have just walked away." Adrian reached out and touched her cheek gently. "Because from the moment I saw you, I knew you were someone special. Someone worth fighting for." Serafina felt tears welling up in her eyes again. But these were different tears. These were tears of hope. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we go to the castle. You tell your story to my father, and we make sure Lady Vivienne pays for what she did." "And after that?" Adrian smiled. "After that, we figure out the rest together." The journey to the royal castle took less than an hour, but for Serafina, it felt like entering another world. She rode behind Adrian on his horse, wrapped in his warm cloak, watching the familiar streets of her childhood pass by. Everything looked different now. Smaller, somehow, less intimidating. Maybe that was because she wasn't alone anymore. When they arrived at the castle, servants immediately began bustling around them. Hot baths were drawn. Clean clothes were brought. A feast was prepared. Serafina couldn't remember the last time she had felt so overwhelmed by kindness. "I don't deserve this," she told Adrian as they stood outside her assigned chambers. "You deserve so much more," he replied. "You deserve a lifetime of kindness to make up for all the cruelty you've endured. Your father will want to see me tomorrow." "Yes, but don't worry. I'll be with you every step of the way." Serafina nodded. then hesitated. Adrian? Yes? Thank you for everything, for saving my life, for believing in me, for seeing me as more than just a girl in rags. Adrian stepped closer to her. Serafina, I need you to understand something. When I found you in that alley tonight, I wasn't just saving your life. You were saving mine too.
What do you mean?
I mean that I've been searching for something my whole life without even knowing what it was. Purpose, meaning, love. He cupped her face in his hands again. And then I found you, and suddenly everything made sense. Serafina's heart raced. Adrian, I feel the same way, but we barely know each other. I know enough, he said softly. I know you're brave and kind and strong. I know you've survived things that would have broken most people. I know that when you smile, my whole world lights up. But I'm nobody now. I have no family, no title, no fortune. What can I offer a prince? Everything, Adrian whispered. You can offer me everything that matters, your heart, your love, your truth. Their lips were only inches apart now. Serafina could feel the warmth radiating from his body. She could smell his masculine scent mixed with rain and leather. If I kiss you, she whispered, there's no going back. People will say I'm using you. They'll say I'm a gold digger who seduced a prince to save myself. Let them say whatever they want, Adrian murmured. I know the truth, and the truth is that I'm completely hopelessly in love with you. Adrian, kiss me, Serafina, please. She didn't need to be asked twice. Their lips met in a kiss that was soft and gentle at first, then growing more passionate as they lost themselves in each other. Adrian's arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her closer. Serafina's hands tangled in his dark hair. When they finally broke apart, they were both breathing hard. Wow, Serafina whispered. Wow, indeed, Adrian agreed, resting his forehead against hers. What happens tomorrow? Tomorrow, we tell your story to the king. We make sure Lady Vivienne is brought to justice, and then, Adrian smiled, then I ask you to marry me. Serafina's eyes went wide. Adrian, you can't be serious. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. But we just met. So, my parents met at a royal ball and were engaged 3 hours later. They've been happily married for 30 years. That's different. They were both royalty. And now you will be too. Serafina shook her head. Adrian, this is crazy. Your father will never approve. The people will never accept me. My father wants me to marry someone who will make me happy. You make me happier than I've ever been in my life. Adrian took her hands in his, and as for the people, they'll love you once they know your story. You're not just a survivor, Serafina. You're a hero. I don't feel like a hero. Heroes never do. That's what makes them heroic. Serafina looked into Adrian's eyes and saw nothing but love and sincerity. This man, this prince, genuinely believed in her. He saw her not as broken or damaged, but as someone worth fighting for. Ask me again tomorrow, she said finally. After we face your father, after we deal with Lady Vivienne, after we see if you still feel the same way in the cold light of day. Adrian smiled. I'll feel the same way in 50 years. We'll see. Yes, Adrian said, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead. We will. The next morning dawned bright and clear, as if the storm had washed all the darkness from the world. Serafina woke in the most comfortable bed she had slept in for months, wearing a nightgown made of silk so soft it felt like wearing a cloud. For a moment she wondered if the entire previous night had been a dream, but then she saw Adrian's cloak hanging on a chair across the room, and she knew it was all real. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Come in, she called. A young maid entered, carrying a tray of food that smelled like heaven. "Good morning, my lady," the maid said with a curtsy. "Prince Adrian asked me to bring you breakfast. He also sent these." She gestured to a wardrobe that hadn't been there the night before. It was filled with beautiful dresses in every color imaginable. "He had them brought from the finest dressmaker in the kingdom," the maid explained. "He said to tell you that a princess should dress like a princess." Serafina's heart fluttered. Even when he wasn't with her, Adrian was taking care of her. After breakfast and a long luxurious bath, Serafina chose a dress of deep blue silk that reminded her of Adrian's eyes. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made just for her. Another knock at the door revealed Adrian himself, dressed in formal royal attire. "You look beautiful," he said, and the way he said it made her believe it was true. "Are you ready for this?" she asked. "Are you?" Serafina took a deep breath. "As ready as I'll ever be." The throne room was enormous and intimidating, with soaring ceilings and stained glass windows that painted rainbow patterns on the marble floor. King Edmund sat on his golden throne, looking every inch the powerful monarch he was. But when Adrian introduced Serafina, the king's expression softened with compassion. "My dear child," he said kindly, "we all thought you had perished in the fire. Where have you been all these months?" With Adrian's encouraging presence beside her, Serafina told her story. She spoke of Lady Vivienne's hatred, the drugged tea, the fire, her desperate escape, and the months of hiding and fear. She also told the king about the previous night's attack, and how Marcus had confirmed that Lady Vivienne was the real killer. When she finished, the throne room was silent for a long moment. "These are very serious accusations," the king said finally. "Lady Vivienne is now one of the wealthiest women in the kingdom, having inherited all of your father's estates. I know, Your Majesty, but everything I've told you is the truth." "I believe you," the king said, surprising her. "Your story explains many things that never made sense about that night, and Marcus's confession before he died corroborates your account." "He confessed?" Adrian nodded. "Before he died from his wound, he told Captain William everything, how Lady Vivienne hired him and his men, how she planned the whole thing, how she's been hunting you for months." "So what happens now?" Serafina asked. "Now," the king said, rising from his throne, "Lady Vivienne will be arrested and tried for murder. Your father's estates will be returned to you as his rightful heir, and you will take your place as one of the most powerful duchesses in the kingdom." Serafina felt dizzy. After months of having nothing, she was suddenly being given everything back. But more importantly, the king continued with a small smile, "My son tells me he wishes to marry you." Serafina's cheeks burned red. "Your Majesty, do you love him?" The question was so direct that Serafina was taken aback. But looking at Adrian's hopeful face, she knew there was only one answer. "Yes, Your Majesty, I do." "And you, Adrian? Do you love her?" "More than life itself, father." The king nodded approvingly. "Then you have my blessing. But," he held up a hand, "I want you to wait 6 months before the wedding. Let the dust settle from Lady Vivienne's trial. Let the people get to know Serafina as she truly is, not as the mysterious girl from the fire." 6 months? Adrian looked disappointed. 6 months, the king said firmly. "Use the time wisely, court her properly. Show the kingdom what a remarkable woman she is." Adrian bowed. "Yes, father." The king turned back to Serafina. "And you, my dear, use these months to heal from your ordeal. Learn to be happy again. Learn to trust again. And most importantly, learn whether you truly want to be a princess." "I understand, Your Majesty. Thank you for your wisdom and kindness." It's the least I can do for my future daughter-in-law. The words sent a thrill through Serafina's heart. Daughter-in-law, princess, wife. 6 months ago, she had been living in alleys and stealing bread to survive. Now she was going to marry a prince. But as she looked at Adrian's loving face, she knew that the real miracle wasn't becoming a princess. The real miracle was finding someone who loved her exactly as she was. Lady Vivienne's trial was the event of the decade. The entire kingdom watched as the truth finally came to light. Witness after witness testified to her cruelty and greed. The 2 surviving guards confessed everything in exchange for lighter sentences. Lady Vivienne maintained her innocence until the very end, but the evidence was overwhelming. She was found guilty of double murder and sentenced to life in prison. During the trial, Serafina's courage and dignity impressed everyone who saw her. She testified with grace and honesty, never seeking revenge, only justice. The people fell in love with her story. Here was a girl who had lost everything, survived months of hardship, and still found the strength to seek truth over vengeance. Adrian was right. They did love her. As the months passed, Serafina grew into her role as a duchess. She reopened her father's estates and used her wealth to help other orphans and homeless people in the kingdom. She established schools and hospitals and soup kitchens. But most importantly, she and Adrian grew closer every day. They spent hours talking about everything and nothing. They rode horses through the countryside. They danced at royal balls. They fell deeper and deeper in love. On their wedding day, exactly 6 months after their first meeting in the alley, Serafina wore a dress that seemed to be made of captured starlight. Her hair was adorned with diamonds and pearls, but she had never looked more beautiful than she did when she smiled at Adrian as he waited for her at the altar. "Do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" the priest asked. "I do," Adrian said, his voice ringing with joy and certainty. "Do you take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Serafina looked into Adrian's eyes, the same eyes that had seen past her rags and mud to the person she truly was, and smiled. "I do." When they kissed, the entire kingdom cheered. That night, as they stood on the balcony of their chambers, overlooking the city, Adrian wrapped his arms around his new wife. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked. "Giving up your quiet life for all this chaos and responsibility?" Serafina leaned back against his chest and smiled. "Never. But do you ever regret it? Falling in love with a girl you found in an alley?" "Never," Adrian echoed, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "That girl in the alley was exactly who I'd been searching for my whole life. I just didn't know it yet. I love you, Prince Adrian." "I love you too, Princess Serafina." And as they looked out over their kingdom, where the lights in the windows twinkled like earthbound stars, they both knew that sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin in the darkest places. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what truly matters. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, a prince will find you in an alley and see that you're beautiful even in rags. The end. But wait, there's more to this story. 5 years later, Princess Serafina stood in the same alley where she had first met Adrian. But this time, she wasn't hiding in the shadows. She was there with a purpose. "Are you sure about this, my love?" Adrian asked, watching as workers began tearing down the old, crumbling buildings. "I'm sure," Serafina said, her hand resting on her rounded belly where their first child grew. "This alley saved my life. It brought us together. Now it's going to save other lives too." The alley was being transformed into a beautiful garden with a shelter for homeless women and children. A place where people who had lost everything could find hope again. Above the entrance, a plaque would read, "In the darkest places, love can bloom." Adrian put his arm around his wife and smiled. You know, I still think you were the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen that night, even covered in mud and rain, even begging not to be seen. Especially then, because that's when I knew you needed someone to see you. Really see you, and I wanted to be that person. Serafina turned in his arms and kissed him softly. You saved me, Adrian. No, he said, touching his forehead to hers. We saved each other. As they walked away from the construction site, hand in hand, neither of them noticed the young woman watching from the shadows of another alley across the street. She was thin and dirty, dressed in rags, with desperate eyes and tears on her cheeks. But as she watched the prince and princess walk away, their love evident in every step they took together, something stirred in her heart. Hope. Maybe, just maybe, her story wasn't over yet either. Maybe tomorrow, when she found the courage to step out of the shadows, someone would see past her rags to the person she truly was. Maybe her prince was just around the corner. The cycle continued, as it always does in fairy tales. Love finds a way. Hope never dies. And sometimes, the most beautiful beginnings start with the words, "Don't let them see me like this." Lady Evangeline Ashford stood in front of her big mirror in her bedroom. Her white wedding dress was covered with shiny pearls. Tonight was supposed to be the best night of her whole life. She had just married Duke Edmund Blackthorne. He was the most powerful man in their country, but something felt really wrong. The wine at dinner had tasted weird. It was bitter and nasty. Her new husband had made her drink all of it. For good luck, he had said with a mean smile that made her feel cold inside. Now everything looked fuzzy. Her hands were shaking like leaves in the wind. The bedroom door opened slowly. Edmund walked in. But he was not by himself. Behind him came Lord Ashworth. This was the man she really loved. The man her father had said she could never marry. "Hello, my dear wife," Edmund said. His voice sounded like ice water. "I can see the poison is starting to work." Evangeline took a big breath and felt scared. She tried to run, but her legs would not move at all. "Edmund, why are you doing this to me?" "Because you were never meant to be my wife," he said with an ugly look on his face. "Your heart belongs to him, and I cannot have a wife who loves another man." Lord Ashworth stepped closer. His face looked really sad and hurt. "You do not have to do this terrible thing, Edmund." "But I do have to," the Duke said back. "When she is gone, I can marry her younger sister instead. She will give me the children I need to keep my power, and she will never know that I killed Evangeline." The room started spinning around and around. Evangeline fell down to the floor. Her white wedding dress spread out around her like the wings of a big bird. "I loved you so much," she whispered to Ashworth. "I will always love you." Then everything went completely black and dark. Evangeline opened her eyes again. Bright sunlight was coming through the windows, but these were not her windows. These were not her rooms at all. She sat up really fast. Her body felt different somehow. It felt smaller and younger than before. She ran to the mirror and let out a loud scream. The face looking back at her was her own face, but it was the face she had when she was only 16 years old, 7 whole years younger than she had been. This was before she had met Edmund, before they got engaged, before everything went so wrong. "What is happening to me?" she cried out loud. The door burst open with a bang. A man rushed into the room, but this was not just any man. This was Marcus Ravencroft. He was supposed to be the enemy of her whole family. Her father always called him the devil himself. But Marcus looked worried about her. He did not look evil at all. "Thank God you are awake," he said. "I thought I might lose you forever." "Lose me? What are you talking about? Where am I right now?" Marcus came closer to her bed. His dark eyes were full of worry and care. You do not remember what happened. You fell down in the forest. You have been very sick for 3 whole days. Evangeline looked around the room with wide eyes. She was inside Ravencroft Castle. This was the place her father had told her to fear most in the whole world. I need to go home right now, she said. You cannot travel anywhere yet. You are still too weak and sick. But Evangeline was not really listening to him. Her mind was thinking very fast. If she was 16 years old again, that meant she had 7 whole years to change everything. 7 years to save herself from Edmund's deadly poison. But first, she had to figure out why she was in her enemy's castle. Marcus brought her some food. It was warm soup and fresh bread that smelled really good. His hands were very gentle when he checked to see if she still had a fever. Why are you being so kind to me? Evangeline asked him. Our families are supposed to hate each other. Marcus sat down in the chair next to her bed. I do not hate you, Evangeline. I never have hated you at all. But my father says you are a dangerous man. He says that you killed your first wife. Something dark and sad passed over Marcus's face like a shadow. Your father says many things about me, but not all of them are really true. Then please tell me what is true. Marcus was quiet for a long time. When he finally spoke, his voice was very soft and sad. My wife died when she was having our baby. The baby died too. I blamed myself for both deaths. I became very angry at the world. I pushed everyone away from me. Your father saw this anger and decided that I must be an evil person. Evangeline felt her heart become softer toward him. I am so sorry that happened to you. It was 5 years ago now. I have learned how to live with the pain, but it never really goes away. Is that why you never got married again? I told myself that I would never love anyone again. Love brings too much pain and sadness. But as Marcus looked at Evangeline, she could see something special in his eyes, something that made her heart beat much faster. There is something else I need to tell you, she said. In my other time, I mean in my dreams, I was much older. I was married to Duke Edmund. He gave me poison on our wedding night and killed me. Marcus leaned forward in his chair. Dreams can sometimes show us what might happen in the future, or what will happen if we make the wrong choices. Then I have to make different choices this time. What will you do instead? Evangeline thought very carefully about her answer. I will not marry Edmund. I will find a completely different path for my life. What about Lord Ashworth? I know you have special feelings for him. Evangeline was very surprised. How do you know about that? I see how you look at him when we are all at court parties. Your whole face lights up like the sun when he walks into a room. But as Evangeline thought about Ashworth now, she realized something very strange. The feelings she used to have for him seemed different somehow. They felt far away and distant, like they belonged to a completely different person. I thought I loved him with my whole heart, she said slowly, but maybe I was totally wrong about that. Over the next few days, Evangeline grew much stronger and healthier. Marcus took care of her all by himself. He brought her interesting books to read. He told her exciting stories about all the places he had traveled to. He made her laugh until her sides hurt. She began to see that everything her father had ever told her about Marcus was completely wrong. One evening, as they sat together by the warm fire, Evangeline asked the question that had been bothering her mind. Marcus, why was I in the forest when you found me? I cannot remember leaving my home at all. Marcus looked uncomfortable and worried. You were running away from something. Running away from what? Your father was trying to force you to marry Lord Pemberton. He is that old man who already has 7 children from his first wife. You said you would rather die than marry such an old mean man. Now Evangeline remembered what had happened. In this new timeline, her father had chosen a completely different husband for her. Not Edmund, not Ashworth, but someone who was even worse than both of them. So I ran away into the dangerous forest. You were trying to reach the convent, where the nuns live. You wanted to become a nun instead of marrying him. And that is when you found me. I was out hunting for deer. I heard you crying and sobbing. When I saw you fall down and get sick, I brought you here to my castle to take care of you. Evangeline felt warm tears coming to her eyes. You saved my whole life. Anyone else would have done the same thing. No, she said firmly. You could have just left me there to die. Our families are enemies who hate each other, but you chose to help me instead. Marcus reached out and gently touched her hand. I could never leave you there to die, Evangeline. Even if it meant starting a war with your father. Their eyes met and looked into each other. Evangeline felt something she had never felt before in her whole life, not even with Ashworth. It was much deeper than just thinking someone was handsome. It felt like her soul was remembering something very important that it had lost a long time ago. On the 7th day, Evangeline's father arrived at Ravencroft Castle. He brought 20 soldiers with him, all carrying swords and spears. Where is my daughter? Lord Ashford demanded in a loud, angry voice. Marcus stood in the great hall of his castle. He looked calm, but ready to fight if he had to. She is completely safe here. You kidnapped her like a criminal. I saved her life when she was dying. Nothing more than that. Those are lies. You took her away to bring shame to our family. Evangeline appeared at the top of the big staircase. She had heard all the shouting and yelling. Father, please stop this right now. Marcus is telling you the complete truth. Lord Ashford looked up at his daughter with angry eyes. Evangeline, come down here right this minute. We are leaving this evil place immediately. I will not marry Lord Pemberton. I have already decided. You will do exactly what I command you to do. No, I will not. Evangeline walked down the stairs very slowly and calmly. I am old enough now to choose my own path in life. You are only 16 years old. You know nothing about the real world. But Evangeline felt much older than 16 inside her heart. She had lived a whole other life before this one. She had made terrible mistakes. She had learned very hard lessons that most people never have to learn. I know enough about life, she said with a strong voice. Lord Ashford turned to Marcus with hate in his eyes. What evil things have you done to her? What poison have you put in her mind? He has shown me kindness and caring, Evangeline said before Marcus could answer. Something that you have forgotten how to do, father. Her father's face turned bright red with anger. You will come with me right now, or I will take you back home by force. Marcus stepped forward to protect Evangeline. You will not touch her while she is under my protection. Your protection. Lord Ashford laughed in a mean way. You think I will leave my only daughter with a murderer like you? I have killed men when I had to fight in battles, Marcus said in a quiet but strong voice. But I have never murdered any innocent person who did not deserve it. Can you say the same thing about yourself? The two men stared at each other with hate. You could feel how angry they both were, like smoke filling up the whole room. Finally, Evangeline spoke up again. Father, please give me just 1 month. Let me stay here and get completely better from being so sick. Then I will come back home and we can talk about my future like grown-ups. 1 whole month with this monster? Never in a million years. Then you are not giving me any choice at all. Evangeline turned to Marcus. My lord, I am asking you for sanctuary in your castle. Marcus bowed to her like she was a queen. Your request is granted. Lord Ashford's face went completely white, like he had seen a ghost. You cannot be serious about this. I am completely serious. Marcus saved my life when I was dying. I trust him much more than I trust you right now. Her father looked like he wanted to pull out his sword and start fighting, but he was outnumbered by Marcus's soldiers. Marcus had 30 men in his castle, and Lord Ashford only had 20. This is not over between us, Lord Ashford said in a threatening voice. I will get my daughter back, and you will pay a terrible price for this insult to my family. He left the castle with all his soldiers, but Evangeline knew for sure that he would come back again soon. The month that came next was the happiest time of Evangeline's whole life. Both of her lives, actually. Marcus showed her parts of his castle that she had never seen before. There was a huge library with thousands and thousands of books. There was a beautiful garden where he grew special plants that could heal sick people. There was a tall tower where he studied all the stars in the night sky. I never knew you were such a smart scholar, she said one evening as they looked through his telescope at the moon and stars. Most people do not care to learn anything real about their enemies. They like to believe simple stories that make them feel better. What other simple stories do people believe about you? Marcus smiled in a way that made her heart flutter. That I can turn into a wolf when the moon is full. That I drink the blood of young girls. That I made a deal with the devil to get my powers. Evangeline laughed until her stomach hurt. And have you really done any of those things? Which one are you asking about? Have you made a deal with the devil? Marcus looked at her with very serious eyes. If loving you with my whole heart is making a deal with the devil, then yes, I have sold my soul for you. Evangeline felt like she could not breathe for a moment. You really love me? From the very first moment I saw you lying sick in that forest. Maybe even from before then. Maybe I have been waiting my entire life just for you. She stepped much closer to him. In my other life, the dream life I told you about, I thought I loved someone else with my whole heart, but I realize now that I did not know what real love actually was. And now you do know. Now I know for sure. This feeling I have for you is real love. What I feel in my heart for you is true love. Marcus gently held her face in both his hands. Are you completely certain about this? Because once you kiss me, there will be no going back to the way things were. Your father will never forgive you for this. All of society will say that you are ruined forever. I was already ruined the moment I decided to choose my own fate instead of letting others choose it for me. Their lips met in a soft, gentle kiss. It was tender at first, but then the kiss became deeper and more passionate. All the years of loneliness and pain just melted away like snow in the spring. This was what Evangeline had been searching for her whole life without even knowing it. When they finally stopped kissing, Marcus rested his forehead against hers. I will protect you from everyone who tries to hurt you, even from your own father if I have to, and I will stand by your side against the whole world. But their happiness could not last very long. 3 weeks later, a messenger arrived at the castle with terrible news. Lord Ashford had arranged a marriage between Evangeline and Duke Edmund Blackthorne, the exact same man who had killed her with poison in her other life. The wedding is set for next month, the messenger told them. Lord Ashford says that if Lady Evangeline does not come back home immediately, he will consider her kidnapped by force. He will ask the king to declare war on House Ravencroft. Marcus crushed the letter in his fist until his knuckles turned white. He would not dare to do such a thing. But Evangeline knew that her father would dare to do anything at all. We have to find a way to stop this wedding from happening. But how can we possibly do that? Evangeline thought as quickly as she could. In her other life she had been young and foolish. She had trusted Edmund completely. She had not seen his evil, true nature until it was way too late to save herself. But now she knew so much better than before. "I need to go back home to my father's castle," she said. "Absolutely not. I will never let you walk into that dangerous trap. Please listen to me carefully. I know things about Edmund that other people do not know. In my dream, my other life, he told me exactly why he wanted to marry me. It was not because he loved me. It was because he wanted political power. That is true of most marriages between noble families. But there is much more to it than that. He is planning to kill me right after our wedding. Then he wants to marry my younger sister Catherine instead." Marcus became very still and quiet. "How could you possibly know something like that?" "Because in my dreams, he actually succeeded in his plan. He gave me poison on our wedding night and I died. But dreams are not real proof that we can show to other people. Then we will have to get real proof somehow. But I need to get close to Edmund first, so I can spy on him." Marcus shook his head firmly. "It is way too dangerous for you to do that. Is it more dangerous than doing nothing at all? Is it more dangerous than letting him marry my innocent little sister after he murders me? There has to be some other way to stop him. There is no other way that will work. I have to go back home. I have to pretend that I accept this marriage. And then I have to find real evidence of his evil plans." Marcus was quiet for a very long time. Finally he said, "If you are really going to do this dangerous thing, you will not do it all by yourself." "What do you mean by that?" "I mean that I will be watching over you every single moment. I will have my own men working as spies inside your father's castle. At the very first sign of any danger, we will get you out of there safely. And what if we cannot find the proof we need in time?" Marcus took both of her hands in his. "Then we will run away together, to somewhere far away. We will go to France, or maybe Italy, somewhere that your father can never reach us." "You would really give up all your lands, your title and power?" "I would give up absolutely everything in the world for you." Evangeline felt warm tears coming to her eyes. "I love you so very much, and I love you more than life itself, which is exactly why I will do whatever it takes to keep you completely safe." Evangeline went back to her father's castle 2 days later. She played the part of the good, obedient daughter perfectly. "I am so sorry, Father," she said in a sweet voice. "Being so sick made me confused about everything. I did not know what I was saying or doing." Lord Ashford studied her face very carefully. "And what about now?" "Now I completely understand what my duty is. I will marry Duke Edmund, if that is truly what you want me to do." Her father relaxed and smiled for the first time in weeks. "That is very good to hear. The Duke will arrive here tomorrow. The wedding will take place in exactly 2 weeks. So soon? That seems very fast. Edmund is very eager to make you his wife. He says he has been in love with you for many years." Evangeline forced herself to smile like she was happy. How very romantic of him. But inside her heart, she was making plans. She had exactly 2 weeks to gather the evidence she needed. 2 weeks to save herself and her sister from a terrible fate. That night, she met secretly with Marcus's spy. He was a servant named Thomas who worked in the kitchen and heard lots of conversations. "What do you need me to do, my lady?" "I need you to watch Duke Edmund very closely, every moment. Listen to all of his conversations with other people. Follow him if he meets with anyone in private. And please, be very, very careful. He is much more dangerous than he appears to be." "I understand completely. Also, please keep a close watch over my little sister Catherine. If anything bad happens to me, she will be his next target." The next day, Edmund arrived at the castle with a great ceremony and celebration. He was very handsome and charming to everyone. He brought expensive gifts for the whole family. He said all the right words that people wanted to hear. But Evangeline could see right through his fake performance now. She noticed the coldness in his eyes when he thought no one was looking at him. She saw how he calculated every single smile and gesture like he was acting in a play. "My dear sweet Evangeline," he said as they walked together in the garden, "I have dreamed of this wonderful day for such a long time." "Have you really, my lord?" "Oh yes, absolutely. You are the perfect wife for a man in my important position." "And what position is that exactly?" Edmund smiled in a way that made her skin crawl. "Very soon I will be the most powerful man in the entire kingdom, even more powerful than the king himself." "How very interesting. And exactly how will you achieve all this power?" "Through very careful planning, strategic marriages that benefit me, and by removing any obstacles that might stand in my way." Evangeline's blood turned ice cold in her veins. "What kind of obstacles are you talking about?" "Oh, this and that. People who might try to oppose my rise to power. People who might interfere with my carefully made plans." He was talking about murdering people, just as casually as he might talk about what he wanted to eat for dinner. "I see," Evangeline said, trying to keep her voice steady. "And what exactly happens to people who interfere with your plans?" Edmund's smile grew even wider and more evil. "They have terrible accidents, very tragic accidents that no one can prevent." Over the next week, Evangeline carefully gathered all the information she could. Thomas reported back to her secretly every single night. "The Duke met with a very strange man today," Thomas told her. "A thin man with ugly scars all over his hands. They spoke in whispers so no one else could hear. I heard the word poison several times during their conversation." "Did you hear anything else important?" "The Duke asked many questions about your sister Catherine. He wanted to know all about her daily habits, what kinds of food she likes to eat, when she takes her walks around the castle." Evangeline's heart started pounding like a drum. "He is already planning to kill me and then marry her. There is more, my lady. I found a letter in his room when I was cleaning. He was careless and left it sitting on his desk." Thomas handed her a folded piece of paper. Evangeline read it as quickly as she could. It was from a man named Blackwood. Everyone knew he was a professional assassin who killed people for money. The letter confirmed everything that Evangeline had feared. Edmund was planning to give her poison on their wedding night. He would wait exactly 3 months after her death. Then he would propose to Catherine. He would present himself as the sad, grieving widower who was looking for comfort. "This is exactly the proof we need," Evangeline said, "but we have to be very smart about how we use it." She sent a secret message to Marcus immediately. He arrived at the castle the very next morning. He pretended he had important diplomatic business to discuss. "I have urgent business that I must discuss with Lord Ashford," he told the guards at the gate. When he saw Evangeline in the great hall, he had to force himself not to run to her and hold her tight. Instead, he bowed formally, like they were just acquaintances. "Lady Evangeline, you look very well indeed." "Thank you so much, Lord Ravencroft. My father is waiting for you in his private study." But before Marcus left to meet with her father, she secretly slipped him the letter. He read it very quickly, and his face grew dark with terrible anger. Now they finally had the proof they needed, but they still had to figure out exactly how to use it without getting Evangeline killed in the process. Marcus showed the letter to Lord Ashford right away. At first, Evangeline's father did not want to believe what it said. "This could easily be a fake letter made to trick me," he said. "Then let us test it to find out," Marcus replied. Let us confront Edmund with this evidence and see exactly how he reacts. They called Edmund to come to the study immediately. Marcus showed him the letter without any warning at all. Edmund's face went completely white, then bright red, then white again like he was going to be sick. "This is absolutely ridiculous," he said, but his voice was shaking. "Obviously this is a fake letter." "Is it really?" Marcus asked. "Then you will not mind at all if we check the handwriting against other samples from Blackwood." Edmund's confident mask began to slip and fall apart.
This is a terrible insult to my honor. I will not stand for such horrible accusations."
"Then leave this castle right now," Evangelion said from the doorway. Everyone turned around to look at her. "If you are really innocent, you have nothing at all to fear from an investigation. If you are guilty of planning murder, then leave now and never come back." Edmund stared at her with wide eyes. For the first time she could see real fear in his face. "You planned this whole thing. You and Ravencroft worked together against me. I planned to save my own life. And I planned to save my little sister's life too." "Your sister?" Lord Ashford looked very confused. "What does Catherine have to do with any of this?" "Read the letter much more carefully, Father. Edmund was planning to give me poison on our wedding night. Then, after a suitable period of pretending to mourn my death, he would propose to marry Catherine instead." Lord Ashford read the letter again, much more slowly this time. His face grew darker and angrier with each word he read. "You are a complete monster," he whispered to Edmund. "I welcomed you into my home like family. I trusted you with my precious daughter's life." Edmund realized that he was completely trapped with no way out. His hand moved toward the sword at his side. But Marcus was much faster than him. He had his sharp blade at Edmund's throat before the Duke could even draw his weapon. "I would not try that if I were you," Marcus said in a very soft but dangerous voice. "You are completely outnumbered and surrounded by my men." Edmund looked around the room with frightened eyes. Guards had appeared at every single door. There was absolutely no way to escape. "You think you have won this game," he snarled like an angry animal. "But there are others working with me, others who will finish what I started. Then we will deal with them too. One by one," Evangelion said calmly. Lord Ashford called for his captain of guards. "Arrest Duke Edmund Blackthorne immediately. He will be taken to the capital city and put on trial for attempted murder and treason against the crown." As the guards grabbed Edmund and started to lead him away, he looked back at Evangelion one last time with pure hatred in his eyes. "This is not over between us." "Yes," she said very calmly and clearly, "it is completely over." 3 months later, Evangelion stood in the beautiful chapel at Ravencroft Castle. But this time she was wearing a completely different wedding dress, and she was marrying a completely different man. Marcus waited for her at the altar. He looked absolutely magnificent in his dark blue doublet. But more than that, he looked truly happy. Happier than she had ever seen him. As Evangelion walked slowly down the aisle, she thought about her other life. The life where she had made all the wrong choices, where she had trusted all the wrong people, where she had died young and alone. But that terrible life had taught her very valuable lessons. It had shown her what real love actually looked like. It had given her the wisdom to recognize her true soulmate when she finally found him. "You are the most beautiful woman in the world," Marcus whispered as she reached him at the altar. "You are my whole heart," she whispered back to him. The priest began the wedding ceremony. But Evangelion barely heard any of the words he was saying. She was thinking about the wonderful future ahead of them, the life that she and Marcus would build together. There would definitely be challenges ahead of them. Her father had forgiven her, but other noble families would not approve of their marriage. Marcus was still considered an enemy by many people. But they would face all those challenges together, side by side. They had already proven that their love could overcome absolutely anything. When the priest asked if she would take Marcus as her husband, Evangeline spoke clearly and firmly so everyone could hear. "I will, with all my heart." When Marcus kissed her, the entire chapel erupted in loud cheers and applause. Even Lord Ashford was smiling widely. But the person who looked happiest of all was Catherine. Evangeline's younger sister had been absolutely terrified when she learned about Edmund's evil plans to kill her sister and then marry her. Now she was completely safe, and she was free to choose her own husband when the right time came. 1 year later, Evangeline stood in the same garden where she had first kissed Marcus, but now she was not alone. In her arms, she held her beautiful newborn son. "He has your bright eyes," Marcus said, looking down at the baby with complete wonder and love. "And he has your stubborn chin," Evangeline replied, with a happy laugh. Marcus wrapped his strong arms around both of them. "I still cannot believe this is all real. Sometimes I keep thinking I will wake up and find out it was all just a wonderful dream." "It is completely real," Evangeline said. "We are real. Our love is real. Our family is real." She looked up at the bright blue sky and silently thanked whatever magical force had given her this amazing second chance. In her other life, she would have been dead for over a year now. Edmund would have married Catherine. The whole kingdom would have fallen under his evil influence. But instead, Edmund was locked up in prison forever. Catherine was happily engaged to a kind young lord who truly loved her, and Evangeline was living the life she was always meant to live. "What are you thinking about so seriously?" Marcus asked her. "Just how different everything could have been. How many wrong paths I could have taken instead. But you did not take those wrong paths. You chose correctly when it mattered most. We chose correctly, together as a team." Marcus kissed the top of her head gently, always together. As the sun set over beautiful Ravencroft Castle, Evangeline felt completely at peace with her life. She had learned that sometimes the greatest gift is not getting exactly what you think you want. Sometimes the greatest gift is getting a second chance to choose what you really need. And she had chosen love. True love. The kind of love that could conquer even death itself. The kind of love that could change absolutely everything. 10 years later, historians would write books about the strange case of Duke Edmund Blackthorne. How he had planned to murder his way to the throne. How he had been stopped by an unlikely partnership between former enemies. But they would miss the most important part of the whole story. They would never know about a young woman who had lived 2 completely different lives, who had died in one life and been reborn in another, who had used all the wisdom of her first life to create happiness in her second. They would never know about the love that had been strong enough to bend time itself. But Evangeline knew the truth, and Marcus knew, and their children would know too, because she would tell them the amazing story of how love had conquered death. How sometimes, if you are very lucky, you get a second chance to choose your own destiny, and how the most important choice you can ever make is to choose love. Even when love seems completely impossible, even when love seems very dangerous, even when love means giving up everything else, because in the end, love is the only thing that truly lasts forever. Love is the only thing that can really save you. Love is the only thing that really matters. And Evangeline had chosen love over everything else. The end.